Well, hello there, and welcome once again. If you're returning, if you're new here, you are most welcome. This is my little arty corner on the internet. It's Saturday, the 1st of January, New Year, so Happy New Year to you all, and I wish you all the very best that the year can bring. And remember that even on the darkest days in our lives, if we look for them, we can find those sparkles of light, of peace, contentment, love, companionship, memories that perhaps will keep us warm, or if we look inside we can find those memories that remind us that the dark never lasts for long. Even at this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, where we're in winter, where the days are a bit gloomier than they would be in the summer, it's never long. We're never entirely dark. So I think that's something positive to think of. And of course, to take the opportunity every day to bring that light into your life, with me, is through creativity, amongst other things. I do have to say that, but it has taken me a long time to learn about this. If only I was brought up with this kind of idea as a child, as I'm sure many of us were. But let's not go there. Let's have a look at this, because this is about art. But I really do wish you all the very best, especially peace and contentment and the best health you can have. Okay, so I had a request to show my sketchbooks. I'm not going to show you all my sketchbooks because there is a ridiculous number here. I was looking for some and I thought I'll show some of these, and the pile was just getting higher and higher, which is daft. If you want to see more of my work, because a lot of my work actually isn't in sketchbooks, it's on loose paper, which is in filing cabinets, stacked up in no particular order, no particular organisation, because I usually scan it in and upload it. But a lot of my work is on deviantArt. The link is in the box below, or the information is there. It's artwyrd.deviantart.com. I also have a blog where I post more or less daily, and it's usually art based. Well, it always is these days now. And around social media, but a lot of my social media doesn't go as far back as DeviantArt. That's where you can see my really earliest stuff right the way through to the present day. And sometimes I look at it, I think, gosh, I came so far and I seem to be going backwards. But I think it's all a case of almost like spiralling in on what I want my voice to be. It shows all the experiments I've done, the different things I've tried, and how my view on life or my view on art or things that capture my attention change, and how I want to express myself. So it's quite an interesting chronicle. I don't post on DeviantArt daily. I used to, but I tend to post things there that perhaps would fit in with that idea of completed works more than anything else. So sketchbooks, I've got a couple just to show you. Couple of the one I'm working in at the moment, kind of. The one I did for the Inktober Tangle Pattern Challenge, amongst other things. And there's a new pattern, the challenge happening on 7F5R, I think it is, today, which is a fragment challenge. So I'm hoping to be able to do that. I can see I'm going to have a busy arty day. So, and the other thing I've got here, I've got these two, and these are my journals, pattern collections, motif collections, drawing collections, zibaldones, I suppose I call them. And a zibaldone is another word for a commonplace book, which are very common in the Middle Ages for people who could write. And it's kind of like a journal come sketchbook come ephemera collection, whatever it may be. If you want to keep a memory of it, you could keep accounts in there, what you've spent, where you've travelled, anything goes. You pop it in there. And I just prefer it to something that's titled like art journal, because then you feel it has to be all art. And art journaling has a particular sort of like aesthetic, I suppose, an overarching one. Everybody works within it, but the range of techniques and so on. So I chose a word that means it could be whatever I want it to be, but it's not a journal, it's not a diary, it's not a sketchbook, It's not a bullet journal, it's just where I keep things I want to refer to when I'm lacking some inspiration, perhaps, or, you know, other things. And I do have many of these, but these, it's sort of like I've tried bullet journaling and all sorts, but I keep coming back to the brown one in particular, which is getting close to full. There's still many pages left, and the green one is a new one, although I'm not quite sure how I'm going to organise that one. Anyway, if I start with this is an A5 sketchbook. If I move this out the way, we may be able to open it out completely so you can see it in its entirety. Shuffle it over, more or less. Yeah, more or less. So I started this just over a year ago. This date here is the 28th and 29th of December 2020. So in the darkest days, in terms of light, of last year. And I kind of got into a Zentangle kind of thing. Sort of like trying variations on a theme out and trying coloured pens. I think these are fine liners. I think this was before I bought the Zebra and Arteza vintage coloured gel pens. But I just wanted to see. I think I'd started watching the Zentangle videos, and that kind of inspired me. This is more the kind of thing I like to do, I suppose, in some ways. This organic, very abstract kind of thing. But I quite like to include sort of Zentangle type patterns in there. This one was a very big departure for me, using colour and just in little places rather than all over. And that's something, now looking at this, I need to bear in mind going back. But here's the start of me experimenting with a darker colour pen and a coloured background, and leaving areas practically empty. Well, empty of anything. Here and here. Some I insisted on putting this dot pattern in, because I find it really hard to leave empty spaces. And here's another one. I'll leave it on its side, because if I start twisting and turning things, we'll all get a bit seasick. But this is the very first time I think I used, or perhaps not the first time, but one of the first times I was using chalk pastels to see what would happen. And at the time, I can remember at the time I did this, I thought, oh, I really don't like that. But going back, I'm thinking, actually, I do quite like that. It's quite soft and subtle, and I haven't used colour everywhere. I've left black and white there. And again, this is something I need to think about going forward, looking at this. This one isn't finished. And it's unlikely to be finished now because I've done everything, but I could finish it. I just draw the border in and, leave it as it is. This one was one of those ones where I was thinking, oh my goodness, what on earth was I doing? And I just thought I was, getting into a right pickle with it. But looking at it now, apart from this here, if you ever want to make a weird green, mix yellow and grey together. You get a very sulphurous yellowy green colour. Yeah, I learnt that one. Oh, yellow and grey make green. Weird green, but they make green. Yeah. Should have known it, but I didn't. But again, just trying out different things. And here is where I used some coloured souffle pens to add dots of colour on top of the chalk pastels that were down, just to see what would happen. I think it was this brown I added I didn't like particularly, and that colour. But sketchbooks, I often take them as being, let's try and let's see what happens here. This one, oh my goodness. The drawing was okay. It's too structured, too banded for me to particularly like. It's okay. But then the colour. I just went, what was I thinking? And I keep doing this. And I think, that's my problem. Part of my problem is I think. And rather than either thinking monochrome, selected areas, I go to town and I end up with something that this looks like an arch. Oh, let's make it a brown colour like brick. And you go, yeah, but Angela. So, and then I started drawing a mandala, just having a look to see what I could do. And then this sketchbook was put aside until October and Inktober, and you'll see how this changes, because Sketchbooks are a great way for working and developing with things. With Inktober, there's a Tangle Pattern a Day challenge for you to work with and use. And I had never come across this particular one, Lunar Flux, before. And so I wanted to work out how it works, which meant I ended up filling a page with variations as well, because that's what I do before I even put pen to another piece of paper to create a tile or a drawing with this in it. And I didn't ink everything in here. I left a lot of it in pencil. No colour, just straight, pencil work and ink work, nothing else. And I found I really enjoyed doing this first page. I was also doing Inktober, and the first prompt for Inktober was crystals. So here, drawing crystals in pencil and adding Lunar Flux. So I did do a drawing. Is it in here? I think I did it on separate paper. I'm just looking through. Oh no, I did do it on separate paper with these elements in. And again, that is all on all over my social media, if you want to dig and delve back that far. As I say, I'm quite active, once a day. I'm not crazy, sometimes twice, but not very often twice a day. Next day was Naki. So here I started working with graphite pencils and chalk pastels to add hints of colour. So working with shadow and highlights, I thought I really need to have a look at this. And these are the matte graphite pencils, because I can tell by their colour and the way that they are working. But I think I ordered those further along in the month, but came back and went back and worked on things. And again, I enjoyed this so much that we got quite a few pages. Suit was the Inktober challenge prompt for that day, so I took it as like a suits of cards. And variations on the Naki theme. So you can tell I really enjoyed. We got dudes, so there's a bit more colour, some gold. Whipped cream, I really struggled with getting many variations of whipped cream, but I did like the one on its own. I called it semi-whipped cream in there, just to remind me it's half a whipped cream, and I use that then in other ways, but it ends up looking like other tangles. I think of all of these, that one is one of my favourites, with the little bits there peeking out. Colour's not fantastic, but and then I started colouring pages. So distress ink, I'm drawing on the top to give me that background colour, and some pastels on there as well. For Inktober it was knots, so I drew a page full of Celtic knots. I live in the land of Celts, well, one of the Celtic nations. Wasn't born here, but I lived here for all but 5.5 years of my life. So I guess I'm naturalised Welsh now. And I've always loved Celtic knotwork from the very first time I remember seeing it. And I would have been really young when I did. But it's just one of those things. It's just so fantastic. Raven was day 5, and actually that raven isn't too bad, but the rest of them are all a bit strange. And this is where I decided doing Inktober and the Tangle challenge was just too much. So I think I was working on a book or doing stuff at the same time. And everything was just it's just too much at one point, almost too much. This is one of the drawings I did using some of the patterns. I think I've got, when is that one? Can't remember what that is. I think I used it's whipped cream, sort of. And then we've got these patterns here. There's Lunar Flux and stuff. And I just wanted to see what would happen. And on these, I've used coloured fine liners, as well as I think I used some chalk pastels, but I also think I've used some kind of water soluble medium there. I'm not quite sure whether it was Inktense pencils. Don't think it's Graphitint. I don't think it was the Ecoline pens, though it could have been. I can't remember. I should really make a note somewhere. So you can see, I mean, here's Moriso that I used yesterday, which I really do like as a pattern when you muck about with shadow and highlight, like up here, and really get that feeling of everything's not level. It's all a bit wibbly wobbly. And again here. So I actually was looking through this very quickly yesterday. Typical Angela kind of drawing. But you can see how some of the patterns I've used or worked on with Inktober have crept in. There's Moriso there, deviantArt. There's this one which is Zenith, I think, or Zenith Variation, and it's upside down, but I've got a column there, which is quite Mayan or Aztec-y, and because I quite like that as well. And I don't go and reference them, it just comes out that way because I've looked at them. So I'll just flick through very quickly. You can see on all of these pages I've used Distress ink backgrounds, and they're quite intense colours, because for these I did use the cut and dry foam, which puts down a lot of colour. And it was only later on I realised I really like this, so I really want to use have a go with the blending brushes and get a more subtle colour. This is perhaps one of my favouriteest pages. It's the Fengal, these ones. It's that contrast and getting the dimension going that I love. These were strange pages. I love flowers, and Yumimi is a lovely sort of Sakura style, Sakura cherry blossom style drawing. And I did lots of variations, but dear goodness, there's no way I was going to have the patience to colour all of this in. Well, I could have, but I get fed up after a while. This page had that feeling of being sort of very grungy, very dirty, very aged kinds of colours. And so I wanted to go a bit brighter, and I did. And, well, you know, this was a really intriguing one, because if you curl it this way with the spike sticking out, it's really interesting. It looks like it's going up. But if you draw a spiral and have the spines sticking inwards, it looks like you're going down into a hole. So I quite like that one, especially for its dimension. C knots and so on. I'm just flicking through very quickly because I have done a flip through of this. This one was fun because it's essentially a wedge of pie or pizza with borders in it, you know, sections of borders. So I love borders. This is a Tangle pattern that does tend to confuse me a little. I had to work on it a lot to get something that how I could get it to work for me, I think is what I'm trying to say. And there was some more there. I haven't finished it off. It's fine. It's a sketchbook. I may want to go back there one day. Oysteroid is an interesting one. It's that idea of having very thick, dark lines and thin ones to give a sense of dimension. And depending where you put the lines, you know, you can either have something looking like it's a mountain, or I tried in places to have things look like they go down. You really need them side by side, and you have to be careful where you add the shadow to get the illusions. Oof was fun. And for Oof, I used it as an opportunity to do things with gel pens, to use gel pen ink like paint, where you put some down and then you use a damp brush to spread it out and thin it out, or to mix colours. With a lot of gel pens, they don't dry quickly, so you've got the opportunity to do that, but you can only really do 1 or 2 sections at a time, because if they dry, they can reactivate, but it's harder work. It's better to do it while they're damp. A bit more of Oof. I was working with Oof in different arrangements, so I'll just look through and you can see that I've got, this is one of my favourites, Trulina, and it does remind me of the Oogie Boogie Man from Nightmare Before Christmas. I think it's these bits that remind me of the top of his sack and the points and so on. But yeah, that's how I'd have called it, Oogie Boogie, but that's me. Pretty flowers, lots of leaves, that's this is a really interesting tangle, because on the face of it you think, oh yeah, it just looks like tabs, but when you start adding colour and shadow to the tabs in different ways, you get really interesting shapes and forms and things going on. So I had a lot of fun with that one. And finally there was Eek, which is just basically lots of lowercase e's strung together, but you can work it in different ways, and every single one of these is based on Eek. These are E's, but they're my kinds of E, which is like a C with a line through it, very uncial, old-fashioned writing. And then I've got pages here which I haven't done anything with. They've got colour on. Some are incredibly intensely coloured and some not so. You watch yesterday's or my last video, you'll know stencils and baby wipes there, and different kinds of stencils here. This one's all like cracked pavement, snake skin over the top. So I was using different stencils on the top just to give that background texture, because I worked with, this is an idea that came to me as I was working in this sketchbook, because that is what I do. This is my current sketchbook. Well, one of them. I have others, I'm sure, but I can't find them. So this is where I've really realised, right, okay, sketchbooks are for trying things out. And this is where I started looking at lessons I'm learning from medieval art and putting them into, let me move my mug and have a drink. I'm trying out what I can do. And I haven't gone back to this, and I think I would like to, because I do like these bold colours with a pattern on top of them. And golden highlights as well, because you get lots of metallics in the old manuscripts. Gold leaf and little dots of gold as well. How to bring light into your life. So I couldn't work on the back because I used marker pen for that. It came through. So this is a page I have never shown anyone, but it's where I started with some entangled letters or Zentangle letters, because I still get vexed by these and I just wanted to try things out. And there was this newish variation of flukes came out in the 12 Days of Zentangle, and I'd used things like this before. It's not a new thing to me, but I just thought, okay, let's work with it in. And then other things like seed pods I'd done on a video going back, I'd crept out here, and various other things, you know, trickling through my head. And it's just a drawing. It's just something I did for time, for fun. The whole page is a mishmash of different things and ideas and something to look back on. And here's where I started looking at medieval illuminated letters from early medieval manuscripts, and looking at the design elements and picking out ones. I think I like that pattern. How can you draw it? So in some places I've got the sort of like how I do it. You might recognise this down here. You've been watching my recent videos about medieval inspired drawing here. The leaves are interesting. I know how to draw them, but I haven't worked out quite how to explain to somebody else or make it simple for you to do ones, especially these ones where they curl over. I can see how I can draw that one and make it easy, but to replicate it perfectly each time. But there's other things like these lovely berries up here and different kinds of flowers that I haven't really drawn, and things like this. This kind of use of simple patterns in a band, but breaking it up so you've got an area of one pattern, something different than another one, and yet these are all based on grids. This was one I don't think I've seen this one, but that one is so lovely. And you know, other things that have creep in. And I've got another page. If I pop it this way, I think you'll see it in its entirety. And from things like thistles and how the bottom bits are hatched. I struggle drawing these style of ivy leaves, sort of, except now I look at them, I think actually I quite like those. This needs a bit of work, how I can draw that. But vast majority of these, as on the previous page, were done directly with ink. I can't see any pencil lines on here at all. There's the pattern I used in the medieval one. This is a really interesting and really simple pattern to do, and it's just lovely. Plenty of space in it to let the background colour shine through. All these different kinds of leaves and even flowers, like the top of a flower or top of a seed pod flipping open. And then if I turn round, you are going to get seasick and dizzy. Here's another page. And again, ideas for borders that are more geometric and wavy lines, just like in the one I just showed you back here. These wavy lines, but just slight differences, the basis. This I haven't worked out the way that these little three leaflet leaves zigzag across, but I think they could be interesting. These were fun. I like those. This is really lovely, and the way that this little arches in there that aren't connected, they just float and look like petals with the leaves with things in. Things I wouldn't necessarily have thought myself unless I'd looked things up. Lots of different leaves, because I do love leaves, and how leaves attach to other things. This flower, getting this flower into the shape was understanding that kind of shape, I know, was a bit of an issue for me somewhere, but suddenly something clicked. I'll put it in a triangle and with a leaf, and then they fit nicely in there. Can't see where the other ones were. No one's working on it. Another page, so I will twist and turn this one round. And lots of things. This looks a lot like Fengle, but it's not. It wasn't drawn in the same way as Fengle, but it could be. Now I look at it, as I was drawing it, I was thinking, this reminds me of something, and that's what it reminds me of. But it's drawn in a different way. But it ends up looking something like Fengle. Lovely borders. This was so lovely, so simple and so much fun to do. It's like the tabs that I just showed you. Now I can remember why it was so familiar. It's a bit like tabs, but instead of having one or two tabs on line, you've got lots of them, and I slotted ones going the other way. You know, these could either be opposing one another, or they could be layered. You know, this one's on top, there's something below, and then there's something on, you know, and that one there could be top layer, middle layer, bottom layer, and playing with shadow or density of line or colours that look foreground to background colours be fun. Lots of pretty flowers. And this is where I started realising I really needed some help with pencils, that drawing in the basic outline shape and basic guidelines would really help. And that's exactly what I did, because I did this one, which is fine, but I really wanted these to be much plumper. So they're not much plumper, but they are plumper. So that's what I wanted to get there. And again here, I managed to draw it quite simply, but I really needed those guidelines to be able to get these little extra bits in. And the same here, where I can put these areas. So pencils started to become, drawing pencil became important. And then here is this page, and it's lots of pencil, sort of like outlines here. This one especially, because I can understand how I could do this with pen, but I know that having pencil lines and constructing it with pencils would mean I would end up with a cleaner, less problematical finish. I drew the line through here and I shouldn't have, but it's fine. it is what it is, and it's a sketchbook. It's not meant to be perfect. If I did that on a finished piece of work, I'd be kicking myself. So I didn't. But again, more kinds of flowers. This is a really interesting kind of border. And it was looking at how you can draw it. This is the simpler version, which is you start with like a peanut shape and put these leaves in. But I thought, oh, what if I draw the peanut shape in pencil, draw those leaves coming outside, and then using that to connect them. I haven't quite got it right. That's quite a nice one. But I will do eventually. And I've got more seed pods or seed poddy type things for my collection as well. This was fun. And that's a round version. This is more triangular. And this particular leaf or petal, I created a fold over and a curl up. I really got no idea what you call it. And that's fun, where you've got like the middle of the flower sticking up and then the petals around it. I found that fun and an interesting kind of motif to use. So that's as far as this particular sketchbook has gone. I like the sea white ones, I do. I did buy some another brand to try, and I really don't like them. The other ones I liked. The one that was these are quite nice as well. The Enviro by Artwyrd. I think they're made from waste pulp. So from paper making, you get pulp left over, and they've repurposed it into sketchbook paper, cartridge paper. So it's a bit more environmentally friendly. It's nice. It's nice paper to draw on. It takes distress ink well. It doesn't take washes of anything wet very well. Whereas these ones, the sea white ones, this is their mixed media or all media acid-free cartridge paper. It's been sized, and sizing is that it's been treated with, I think it's gum arabic, and that helps to stabilise the paper, especially when you're using wet media on it. It's fairly thin paper. It's going to ripple with too much water, and you can't overwork it. It's, you know, it's not meant for watercolour painting, but for sketchbook and using wet media in your sketches or in your work, it's fine. And I often take pages out of my sketchbooks to draw on. Okay, on to these. I didn't intend this to be this long. I was hoping that I'd get through showing you these quite quickly and get some drawing done. But I think you'll be getting just a video of my sketchbooks today, so I hope you bear with me. So this is one of my zibaldones, and it's just a Grids Notepad. And I have made use of some of the ideas that come from bullet journaling, because I did have a dalliance with bullet journaling, particularly when I was writing the book, or before I wrote a book called A Dangle a Day. Wrote and illustrated it, because bullet journaling enters into that and how you can use dangle designs in bullet journaling. So I kept a bullet journal, so I had some materials that I could take photographs of and so on for the book. And yeah, I do write notes down on any piece I can. This is my book. I can write wherever I like. So you'll see that I've got a contents page, and here I started doing this and I lost the plot along the way because things have become mixed up. But I started with, every time I started a new section or a new collection, as they call in bullet journals. So I've got favourite patterns, botanicals, crystals, feathers. So each of these is what you call a collection. They're things that belong together. And rather than leave blank spaces, what you do is, so if I show you, I've got my favourite patterns here. And then after this section, I've gone on to Botanical Patterns. But if you look here, I've got a little number down there. It says 55. So if I go to page, hopefully 55, my favourite patterns continue here. And I'm going to put my auto focus lock on because I just noticed that I did a horrible wobble in and out. So it's an easy way to follow through. And this has got a number above it and an arrow pointing backwards, telling you that to go back to page 9. That's where we left off. And it's the same for all, it could be the same for all of these collections. So in here for the Tangle patterns, I've drawn, for this section anyway, I've drawn boxes in there, and I haven't used a ruler. I've just drawn it using the dots, and I think they're four dots by 4 dots. And me, look at that, the inner margin is exactly the same size on each page. Because apart that one is, I needed to do a more detailed version of funnel because that didn't look like funnel. That's all. So it gives some space for notes and extra bits. So I've got lots of ones like this. Others, like, my Botanicals, it's just like lists. It's whatever I draw and I'll add to it as I come across new ones. The medieval could go in here. They're not, though. They're not going in here yet. So Botanicals include things like succulents, trees, fungi, plants in pots, and more. And I think I've been collecting these now for quite a few years. So crystals, I've got enough crystals to keep me happy there. Feathers, I've got enough feathers to keep me happy there, though I may add more if I need to. Under the sea, so these may not strictly be what you would really find under the sea, but they are things that speak to me as if they are under the sea. And there may be duplicates because these may appear in other sections, but I'll put patterns and textures together that I feel belong together as well. So I don't mind having things like that. So I want to look for things that feel like they belong in the sea. I'll just go to this section. So I have here, these are so cute. They're paper clips. I get them every time I order from Cult Pens, as well as getting a little carton of sweeties. Thank goodness they've stopped sending Haribos because I'm vegetarian. Don't eat Haribo. They're sort of gummy sweets that we have over here. I don't know if they have them in America or around the world, but I don't eat them because they're made of gelatin. So they send love hearts out now, which are sort of like compressed sherbet, which are quite fun. So but yeah, they've got smiley faces on or other expressions, and they're really quite cute. So I get some of those, and I bought some myself. I think you can buy them. I think they're by Oto is the company, OHTO. So we've got bugs, and I've got a couple of pages where I was going to put dangles in, and I did leave some dangle designs there. And then I've got more here because I was looking at jewellery and I was thinking, gosh, jewellery reminds me of dangles. Let's have a look at those. And I haven't gone back to it because I really don't do much with dangle designs these days. And sometimes I think I really ought to. I've got more abstract botanicals, I'd call them, rather than real ones, although there are some that are real. See what I mean? This reminds me of flukes. Not fluke. Is it flukes? That one I was talking about. That's it's not flukes. It might be the one from Tangle this year where they've stretched it and used it as an individual fragment in an organic kind of way. So it reminds me of that, except I've put a curved top on this instead of a pointy one. It's that kind of idea. So all kinds of things like this, and they haven't all come from my head. They've come from looking at all kinds of things, really. Nature, photographs, images, all kinds of things, tiles, whatever, medieval manuscripts. And foliage the same. I put a section of foliage together, and I've got some of these potted plants here again because they belong with just foliage. If I want to look for foliage, I know where to. Same with trees. Bigger versions here, but I've still got some trees and fungi. Well, I love mushrooms, so we've got 2 pages. Capsules, pods and seeds. I've got just a little bit there, but there's so many in the botanicals and so on. And then I've got more favourite patterns. There's probably repeats here. A lot of these were from Maori and I suppose tribal tattoos of the Polynesia, if that's the right way of saying it. Polynesia, Micronesia and so on. I think that's where a lot of these came from, because they're a rich source of bands and patterns. They really are. And there's some others here. I have a couple of pages full of Christmassy things, back to favourite patterns. As you can see, I've referenced pages back and forward, and this one's going forward, which means I've got something else on the next page. Oh, more abstract botanicals, which again are referenced. And so I think you get the idea, is that there's all kinds of things in here. Cute monsters, kawaii creatures, more abstract botanicals. I call them abstract. Some look like the things they are. Others are taken from microscope drawings, microscopy. But there's all kinds of things. This is one of my favourite patterns, and I don't draw it often. It's Taiga, T-A-I-G-A. It's by Tomas Padros, a CZT, and his this one, membrane art. That's one of his as well. His are so beautiful. They really are. Very, very, especially the geometric ones like this. And Tiger is amazing. It's fabulous to put in a circle because it flares out and you get all of these beautiful, it's so dimensional when it's shaded, coloured. So, use of colour, there's some hand lettering in, notes I'll put in. I get things wrong. I can't get this one right. So I gave up, I think. Medieval bird. So random things shoved in there, some more crystals, things that could be flowers or seed heads, all kinds of things. Mandala patterns used in traditional mandalas. Again, a rich source of patterns to look at. This is from something called the Codex Seraphina, and it was sort of like a book concocted, I'm not quite sure when, whether it was the late 60s, early 70s or some other time. There's this manuscript, what is it called? An old manuscript that nobody can decipher or interpret, and it causes all kinds of conspiracy theories and goodness knows what. And somebody created this Codex Seraphina. It's quite disturbing in places and really quite intriguing in others. And so I had to look there, and I thought, oh, I really like some of these things, some of these shapes and ideas. So I sort of like borrowed them, as it were, and draw them here. And every time I draw them or may use them, they will come out. This one, I started adding some more Tangle patterns. I haven't referenced these back. There's melting mucas there, for example. And I know that I saw that for the first time in a Zen Tangle video, and I thought, oh, I quite like that. And I still haven't worked out how you do it. And others. And these are very mechanical, industrial. Source for a lot of these shapes. Star Wars. I've got books. I know. Star Wars. Books of transports and machines and people and races and landscapes. But a lot of these were made from what they call, the spaceships are made from things they call greeblies. And greeblies are the offcuts from kits and things, sort of like airfix kits that you'd build a plane from, and all the sprues and the bits and pieces and leftover parts, or even some of the parts they're used to add the details onto the basic shape of a spaceship or whatever. And when you see that, I look at Star Wars films, I think, oh, I wonder what greeblies they are. It doesn't destroy the magic though, because I love the imagery, I love the things like that. So looking at mechanical parts and using those in work, it adds that different feel. And it's lovely to contrast these quite, as I say, quite mechanical, quite industrial kinds of patterns and shapes with the more organic, flowy kinds of shapes. So you've got that contrast there. And there's some other stuff going on here. These are things that I'd drawn in a picture that I particularly liked and wanted to keep a reference of. I try to do that. It doesn't always happen. And some other shapes. And you might recognise some of these because I've picked them up from places and used them here and kept them there for future reference. And some are quite drawn almost, you know, very simply, but almost like an illustration. This other one is my new one, and I thought I'd start this one with putting together in here some of my favoritist abstract botanicals, and that's as far as I got, because I realised I'm repeating what I'm doing, except that this also has become a reference for how to add shadow. This is why I need to look at these more often, because I've already done this with my, you know, sort of like the, an 05 I used to draw the thick lines, the 01 micron I used to add finer details, and then a fine Bic biro to add these lines here. But here I use stippling with the 01 micron pen and biro there, and I much prefer the biro, it's much more subtle. And then I've got lots of doodle-y kinds of things, some more Tangle patterns, new ones. Kalanchoe is a lovely one. Who's it by? Can't remember, but it's a lovely pattern. This Lena was lovely as well. It's a different kind of pattern. It's similar to others, but it's got that twist. And I've got lots of doodly kinds of things. So you can see that there. I've been collecting bits and bobs. Inktober 2021. Prompt list and Inktober Tangle. I did all of the Inktober Tangles. I only did 5 of these. And then this is where I drew the Tangle patterns. So I had a reference for that challenge. So I got Tweak. This is a beautiful, beautiful pattern. It's called Cantebano. Can't remember who it's by, but if you look it up, it's Cantebano. And I just could not figure out how to do it. It's when I go back, I will be using a liberal amount of pencil to actually work that one out. Nayu is a favourite one. Oh, it's Emiko Kanika is Kalanchoe as well. Beautiful patterns. Emiko does lovely, lovely patterns. And there's another one, Cass. Oh, Ayami as well. I don't know where this one came from. No idea what pattern that is, but I like that. So it may have been one that I was messing about with myself. Oh, and that was Adorable Dogs, because that was the latest book I did, and I was collecting quotes or sayings there I could use in pictures, do some hand lettering. I did some, but I think it was 3 I added some hand lettering to in the end, not many. So there you are. If you want to see what my sketchbooks and notebooks look like, you can see they're not perfect. There's lots of mistakes and crossings out and things not finished and frustration in there. But there's also a lot to say, yeah, I really like that. Yes, I've got it. That feeling of at last, I've worked that one out. And for me, sometimes it takes seeing it actually being done on a video for things to click. It's like that Cantebano. I ought to see if there's a video for that one, because when I see somebody do it, it may suddenly just click, because I realised I'm a lot more of a that kind of visual learner than I am often looking at things. Sometimes I need that extra bit of help, which is why it gives me pleasure to do videos. If I can share things in a simple way and show you how you could do it, and perhaps do things in a slightly different way to how other people do things, then it's something that could help. And I'm glad to say people are leaving messages to say that, which is lovely. Thank you ever so much. So there we are. My sketchbooks, my notebooks. You've had a look at them. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, your time before perhaps you pop along here again. It'd be lovely to see you again. Until I do, take care for now. Bye-bye.